Hey, hey. Really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain. While I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Hey, hey. Really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the
And welcome into the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast and live stream. I'm Bradley Stalder. Tonight, I'm going to be drafting on the FFPC, doing a SuperFlex Bestball Draft with y'all. It's going to be a lot of fun, kicking off in about 2 minutes. For those unfamiliar with FFPC, Fantasy Football Players Championship, they have a few different types of contests, but the one that I'm going to be in tonight is SuperFlex. They have your regular 28 round best ball drafts with, a couple kickers, couple defenses. You can have it as slim sizes. You can also go higher stakes in the best ball streets. But tonight it's going to be focused on super flex. And so I have my draft position and I am number 3. So of course, I encourage you jump into the comments, ask your questions. We can talk through it. Look, it's the end of March, and y'all are joining in because you want to get an edge in your fantasy football drafts already. We're going to talk some rookies. We're going to talk some strategy tonight. We're going to talk about pricing as well, in particular in the SuperFlex drafts. This is the first SuperFlex draft of the season for me. I've been doing a ton of one quarterback FFPC drafts, drafters. I'm in the middle of a lot of slow underdog drafts because, unfortunately, underdog not available here in Michigan. So I'm happy to be getting started with y'all here for the FFPC draft that is SuperFlex. So you're going to be seeing that quarterbacks are going to fly off the board early. I'm going to get one of the big 3 quarterbacks and one of Josh Allen, Hurts, Mahomes, and then we will see what comes back to me in round 2. All right. I am up next, and it looks like Josh Allen goes off the board to start. Yep, so that is available there. Draft time, TD says it is draft time. We are ready to roll here on football podcast and live stream. Yeah, in this tight end premium, is Kelsey an option for me at 3? Not in a SuperFlex. Not for SuperFlex. There is a big 3, and Jalen Hurts is one of those big 3. Jalen Hurts was the quarterback 1 in terms of rate at which quarterbacks were finished at a top 5 rate. He was number 1 last year, and there's no reason to think he'll slow down this coming year. If anything, you need to be considering Jalen Hurts as your quarterback 1 this year overall. That would not be surprising because it's the second year in the offense, second year with Devonta Smith, second year with A.J. Brown and Goddard all together, and there's no Miles Sanders there. There's ambiguity at running back. We'll see if the Philadelphia Eagles address the running back position further in the draft. I assume that they will, but that remains to be seen. They've only re-signed Boston Scott and signed Rashad Penny as, aside from Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell, I don't view as a primarily rushing running back. Like, yes, he will get between 7 and 10 rushes in a game, but I don't see him as ever carrying the load. So the defense is going to be worse for this year. They lost a lot of pieces. They were able to bring back some big pieces, the Philadelphia Eagles defense. But if you remember, they were one of the slowest offenses in the second half. They were getting ahead in the first half of games, and their differential was massive in the first half. Second half, minuscule, because they were just holding on to leads. I expect that their defense gets a little bit worse and that Jalen Hurts has to score a little bit more in the second half of games. We could see record-breaking quarterback one overall performances time and again, over and over for Jalen Hurts. He has the passing weapons. He has the offensive line. He has what I anticipate to be better game script. So all of that culminating in, I'm happy with Jalen Hurts. I'm happy with Patrick Mahomes. I'm happy with Josh Allen, 1, 2, 3. Scott jumps in and asks, is Burrow my quarterback 4 for this year? Yes, I think that Burrow, Fields, and Trevor Lawrence are all in my next tier, along with Lamar Jackson. So I like all of those players in that next tier. So I wouldn't blink an eye at Joe Burrow at quarterback 4. Like in this draft, we saw Justin Herbert go off at quarterback 4. I think that's a little bullish, but if you are pro Justin Herbert, fine. Like I have Herbert, in that Dak Prescott tier, the Deshaun Watson tier, where can they access tier 2 upside? Yes. But there are questions about those particular players of whether or not they'll be able to ascend to the next level. So let's take a look here. Scott agrees with me. Plus the Hurts defense will take a step back, add to the Hurts' value. Yeah, I agree. So I'm happy in that 103 spot to be getting Jalen Hurts. Travis Kelce here goes off as the tight end 1, as the 8th pick overall. I don't hate that at that spot in the draft. There is a huge differential, a multi-tier differential between Travis Kelce and the rest of the tight ends. So I think that that's fine in a tight end premium. If it's super flex, no tight end premium, I think you do need to bump Kelce down just a little bit. But let's make a few more comments about who else we've seen come off the board here. Justin Fields, not surprising. He was the quarterback 5 overall, and right now he's being drafted as the quarterback 5 on Underdog and other places. I don't think he's leapt Joe Burrow, but he's creeping up on Joe Burrow in terms of ADP, and it would not surprise me if he leapfrogs him by the end of the summer, especially if the Chicago Bears address the wide receiver position. Jamar Chase goes off at the wide receiver 2. That's also been the MO for most drafts that I've been in. It goes Jefferson and then Chase. And then we see Lawrence Jackson as the quarterback 7 and 8 going off the board. So those are same tier. I'm happy with that. And then McCaffrey and Kupp. And that ties into Master Y's question here. If Stafford is healthy, do you see Kupp reclaiming the wide receiver 1? I think that Kupp right now is in that the second tier for me. I think it's clearly Justin Jefferson in that 1 tier, and I can't really be argued out of it. If you look at all of the peripheral stats for Jamar Chase, it's clear that Justin Jefferson's upside is locked in ahead of Jamar Chase. He's competing with fewer other options. His quarterback hyper targets him. He's on arguably the pass happiest team in the NFL. So Justin Jefferson, and then I think Chase, Kupp, Hill are in the tier of their own here, the second tier behind Jefferson. So could I see Kupp reclaiming that wide receiver 1? I mean, it's within the Kupp was crushing before his injury, and that was while Stafford was struggling, while the offensive line was struggling. So I could see, Cooper Kupp really easily just re-entering that type of upside. We're talking best ball here, right? So it's super flex and best ball. We're aiming for the spike weeks. We're not aiming for floor. We're only going to try to get some floor near the end of the draft where we know that there are some old reliable players. But here at the beginning of the draft, you want players who will win you weeks. And that's why I'm looking here, and I'm not going to be taking probably taking a quarterback until probably round 3 based on the quarterbacks that are available. Let's be honest. Daniel Jones going off at quarterback 11 is not going to get it done. That's not an upside type of pick. And I am going to be able to stack here pretty nicely Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, right? A.J. Brown, a real high upside wide receiver, but he wasn't as high of an upside as we'd seen in previous years, probably because of the passing volume. But as I mentioned, I'm in on Jalen Hurts getting into more shootouts like we saw earlier. Like A.J. Brown, 10.4% of the time last year was a top 5 wide receiver. That was 10th among receivers behind Waddle and Watson. Actually, it was 9th. I'm sorry. I included Calvin Ridley's last 17 games in that sample, but it was behind Amon-Ra. But I think A.J. Brown in that Stephon Diggs realm is totally fine with me. Same thing with CD Lamb. So we're back around here, and I'm looking at who is available to me, and I really do like a bounce back for Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson in the 3rd round is the right spot. Okay. And quarterback 13, he can easily pay that off, right? At quarterback 13, would I be taking Tua? I mean, Tua had some spike weeks, but he also had some scary weeks. We are seriously concerned about his health moving forward, and we are also seriously concerned about what other options there are. Tyreek Hill has had a history of soft tissue issues. So I like the Russell Wilson bounce back this year. I think that Sean Payton is going to get things right with that Denver offense. And at quarterback 13, like you start to really fall off at options like Tua. Jared Goff goes off right after. So I'll be pretty happy, most likely, with some of the players that come back around to me in this draft. Position wise. So I'm securing 2 top 12 quarterback to the 13th, Russell Wilson 13th, but give me like Russell Wilson's upside over Kirk Cousins, right? I think Kirk Cousins will be just fine at paying off quarterback 12, but he really isn't going to exceed that. Whereas we've seen Russell Wilson exceed massively so his weeks, his spike week potential. So that's what we're trying to go for here is spike weeks. And Russell Wilson tied to Cortland Sutton, tied to Jerry Jeudy. We've got Dulcich and Okuagbunam. Hopefully Javonte Williams gets back soon enough. Tim Patrick should be back. There are enough receiving options, even if KJ Hamler is still dealing with a pec injury. Okay. So we see Tua go off at quarterback 14, Jared Goff at 15, Breece Hall, running back 6. I like Breece Hall, but that is really expensive for a running back that is going at the 2-3 turn in underdog drafts and now is just going mid-round 3, despite the fact that 15 quarterbacks go off the board. This seems pretty aggressive. So I'm going to see, who else comes off the board, but that feels pretty aggressive for Breece Hall. I don't hate the pick because I see the upside, but the Breece Hall pick, maybe he could have gotten a little bit more value out of it. It's possible. Amon-Ra St. Brown goes off wide receiver 9. Geno Smith at quarterback 16. That feels like a meh pick. Like you're fit, like you're banking on Justin Fields being your quarterback 1 and winning you those weeks. But then Geno Smith is a floor play type of quarterback. Looking at what Geno Smith did in 2022 during his breakout season, Geno Smith was quarterback 7 in terms of rate at which he was a top 10 quarterback. But Geno Smith was quarterback 17 when it came to top 5 performances. So it was difficult for Geno Smith to access elite upside that's going to win you weeks. Okay, so he's a solid floor play like quarterback 16, but you're not getting massive upside. And looking at the quarterbacks that are available, right? Kyler Murray is available. Trey Lance is available. Matthew Stafford is available, right? Those are like Stafford has his questions. Kyler Murray may not be back for a bit, but I actually do like Kyler in the 1 quarterback drafts, not needing to play him, pairing him with another elite quarterback, but I'm probably staying away from Kyler in the super flex. mostly because if you're drafting him in Superflex, you're depending on him for the first 4 or 5 games, and then you're investing an immense amount of draft capital for quarterback, and I don't think that that's going to pay off very well. When in these season long playoff tournaments where you're going to have to maybe take some more quarterbacks later that maybe make you weaker or make your bench weaker. It's more risky, in my opinion. So we'll see where this ends up going. Geno Smith goes off, as I said, at the quarterback 16, Garrett Wilson at wide receiver 10. I like that pick. Kenneth Walker, Jalen Waddle, Derek Carr, 17, Aaron Rodgers at 18. Both quarterbacks struggle to access upside, and even if Derek Carr is able to connect with Michael Thomas and Derek Carr is able to connect with Chris Olave, how many top 10 performances are we going to get from Derek Carr? Like what, 30%, 25%? I mean, last year, Derek Carr had 29% of his games at top 10 weeks, not even 30%. Instead, you're looking at Aaron Rodgers, who's also really low. 9.6% of his weeks were top 10 weeks. And Carr and Rodgers combined for 0 top 5 weeks last year. 0. Now you're probably saying, well, Aaron Rodgers had the broken thumb. That certainly was a factor. Alan Lazard was top 11 in expected fantasy points in half PPR last year with regard to spike week potential. So things just did not fall the right way for Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. There was a lot left on the table. So we'll see what happens, but you'd hope that the Garrett Wilson drafter would have been able to get Aaron Rodgers. There are some weak teams out there. So we'll see how this shakes out. But for right now, there are a couple of players that I'm very interested in taking at this spot. There's one player ahead of me, so we'll see how it shakes out. But this allows me for the double stack: AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, and Devonta Smith. Right? I mentioned earlier that AJ Brown was like an upside wide receiver who was top 10, top 9 in wide receiver weeks, but Devonta Smith had only 2.5% fewer top 5 weekly rate scores than AJ Brown. So Devonta Smith and AJ Brown really were accessing those elite upsides, and the stack works out really well. I'm very happy that has turned this way. And there's one player that I'm hoping will come my way. If he doesn't, oh well. All right, who just came off? Is it going to load? Let me scroll back here. Oh, it was George Kittle goes off the board. All right, well, at tight end, no, we're going to go with Chris Olave here. Chris Olave at the wide receiver 16. I think that's a fair price for Chris Olave. You have to think that there's more stability at the quarterback position. Olave also, had to play with Jameis Winston for a few weeks. Do you think the offense is better with Michael Thomas hopefully out there? Rashid Shaheed should be able to take a step forward. So Derek Carr getting an offseason with Olave, I think that's going to work out pretty well. You have to remember the Saints were really conservative with Andy Dalton for a significant part of the year. So getting AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, along with Hurts and Wilson, this sets me up pretty well for targeting Denver wide receivers later. Maybe Jerry Jeudy can come back around to me. Maybe Dallas Goedert, as a stack for tight end, it could work out pretty well. I like some of the upside wide receivers that are also going to swing back around this way. So I'm happy with how this draft is turning out so far. Right now, it's turning out to be a 0 RB build. That's fine by me. If I can get take a running back in round 7 or 8. I think that's fine. Really, there are other teams who have not selected a running back yet. And I think 1, 2, 3 other teams have not selected a running back yet. So this is not uncommon, especially in these super flex leagues. Okay. So we see Amari Cooper and Najee Harris go off. Unsurprising there. I think a little bit more surprising is that the 102 selected both TJ Hawkinson and George Kittle at the tight end 3 and tight end 4. Okay, Goddard goes off, snipes me there. I could have gone Goddard, but I wanted that third wide receiver. Okay, well, if you have questions, more questions, thoughts about how this draft is shaping up, put them in the comments. If you like the content and find this helpful, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. It's been really helpful for the channel. We're approaching 1,000 subscribers, and we'll have a little celebration on the Best Bell YouTube channel once we get to that spot. So right now we're at 981, and I'm going to have a little giveaway once we get to the 1,000 subscribers. I'll give away some swag, and it'll then put me into earnestly getting together the Upside Guide, which should be available on Amazon. And yeah, I'm really excited to get that out to y'all because I've been working hard behind the scenes, and my goal is to get it out to you guys by the rookie draft, so that when best ball season starts ramping up and we know the landing spots for these rookies, we can have a clearer vision of where are the values, where are the pockets, where are the landing spots that can really be valuable for us. So in the meantime, the 104 took Kyle Pitts. I was disappointed with that. Najee Harris and Amari Cooper go off. Kyler Murray is the quarterback 19. And that says the quarterback 1 for that particular team, the Travis Kelce, Jonathan Taylor, Amon-Ra, T. Higgins team. Dallas Goedert goes off as well. There's no wide receivers in the Fields Smith Goddard team. Then Chase Daniel Jones is the quarterback 1, and there's no quarterback here until maybe round 6. We'll see how that one shakes out for the 109. So far, the teams I'm liking, I like the Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson team, the 110 team. That's shaping up pretty well. I also am liking the Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Jalen Waddle, Mark Andrews stack. The stacking with Jackson and Andrews. Is Lamar Jackson going to be a Baltimore Raven? I think I'm leaning yes. But it's the Wild West, out there. So we'll see if a team does, go after Lamar Jackson. Right now, the Colts seem to be the ones that are favored to be acquiring Jackson, but nothing is concrete. Nothing is for certain at this point. The Trevor Lawrence team just stacked Evan Ingram with Lawrence, so that's a nice little pickup there. McCaffrey, Kupp, Carr, Rodgers, DJ Moore, Ridley. There's a lot of risk on that team for the 112. And we just saw Goddard and Waller go off back to back. We've seen some double tapping of tight ends, and I get that it's tight end premium, but tight end premium most helps the Travis Kelce's of the world. And so you need like what was it, week 3 TJ Hawkinson last year, week 4, something like that, where he had like a couple touchdowns, over 150 receiving yards, double-digit receptions. Like, you need massive weeks from your tight ends to be able to hit, because typically, these tight ends are not big-time hitters, and this is only a 20-round draft. So, you're banking on your one tight end getting you to where you need to be, unless you take a couple of them near the end of the draft, which may be the route that I have to go. So I'll be sensitive to when more of these tight ends are coming off, and when the thresholds or the tiers are clearly changing. There's some nice positional values out here as well, just hanging out. I don't want to speak them into existence because maybe they'll get sniped from me. But I do like how some of these positions are turning out for me. Okay, very good. Excited to be doing this. Let's see. Okay. Just checking a couple things in the meantime while we are waiting for the, what is that, the 104? I think the 104 is taking his good old time. It's okay. It's okay. We've seen Justin Herbert, Bijan Robinson, Tua go off there, Travis Etienne, Kyle Pitts for that 104 team. And I am on the clock. I said that this would be the round where I consider, a running back. And I think that this is going to be the round where I do so. Let's go with a running back that I still think has massive, massive upside, and that is DeAndre Swift here in round 6. I love DeAndre Swift's upside still. I think that he's going to be featured in the passing game and given 12 to 15 touches a game. And that's not going to preclude the Lions from using David Montgomery. But DeAndre Swift was used too heavily at the beginning of the season last year, and I think the pendulum swung too hard. But when DeAndre Swift gets open into the open field, we can see Swift going, 8 for 50 and a touchdown, and also 4 catches for 40 yards, and then in very, very good shape. So I like the upside pick there at this spot. Perfect, like, quote unquote, zero RB, or if you want modified zero RB, however you want to describe it. But I like DeAndre Swift at running back 17. I think he's undervalued at that spot. Okay. Well, there's a lot of quarterbacks staring at me. I'm not going to go with a quarterback. Instead, I'm gonna go with a wide receiver I believe in, and that is Jameson Williams at this spot. Wide receiver 27. His ADP on Underdog is wide receiver 30, 32. But he's not going to come back to me. And I'd rather take a shot on a guy who could be, once again, winning weeks rather than just hanging out. There's Christian Kirk that was right there in the similar ADP, and I'm not going to take Christian Kirk, when Jameson Williams is available, or I'm not going to take, who's another one in this area, like Michael Pittman or Keenan Allen. Like, they're floor plays. Those are PPR floor plays. But Jameson Williams, yeah, he might bust. That's why he's, being drafted at wide receiver 27. But he could also spike really, really high. One of the great grade in college, Alabama wide receiver, Will Fuller comp. And I love it. I love the upside that maybe I'm going with the Lions here. I got Swift and Jameson Williams as a nice little correlation. And if the Lions are going to be in some shootouts, Swift and Williams could be the centerpieces of both of that. So nevertheless, we see Joe Mixon go off the board at running back 19. That's a little early from where I've been seeing Mixon, but I don't hate it. Mixon usually going off round 7 or round 8, but right now, running back going 7 or 8 in the SuperFlex is what's surprising to me, I think. So we'll see if there are other values left on the board, because I see some that I really, really like coming back around, both running backs and wide receivers. I think that there's tremendous upside in how these teams are shaping out based on what's left, and also allowing me to consider yeah, Cortland Sutton later, or a Greg Dulcich later for the Denver stacks. So putting myself with one of the best offenses, Detroit should be a good offense. I do have questions about New Orleans, but you have to like Chris Olave. I don't know many people who hate Chris Olave, and I think that's the right spot for him. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins, same tier as Olave, Hopkins, Drake London. But DJ Moore went too early in this draft. Moore was drafted at wide receiver 20. Calvin Ridley going at wide receiver 21 is too early. I like Ridley at like wide receiver 24, wide receiver 27. But you're not even stacking in that. So the 112 was overpaying for Calvin Ridley. Yeah, I don't like how that team is turning out. I'm not a big fan of the 112 build. I'm also not a fan of the 101 build. I'm just going through some of the teams. I'm not a fan of the 112 build because the quarterbacks offer no upside. It felt like they were rushed. And then Carr, Rodgers, and Stafford are all like the same type. They're mostly pocket passers who are dependent upon yards after catch players to make big plays happen. And there's risk with each of them. So Rodgers changing teams, potentially Derek Carr changing teams, and Matthew Stafford coming off of a neck injury. So there's just a lot of risk. And DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, I felt were forced picks. I don't like the Dameon Pierce pick at all, especially with the addition of Devin Singletary. I don't think Pierce, has moved much, maybe down from running back 18 to 23 because of the signing. But I think Devin Singletary is going to be a significant, play a significant role in the Houston Texans offense. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Okay, so Mike Evans goes off the board. Deontay Johnson is off the board. Jackson Smith and Jigba is off the board. We're talking about upside here, and I see a player that hopefully is still available for me in round 8. I like this particular player because of the amount of volume that they received near the end of the season, the spike weeks, the trust that was built. Even if the team isn't great, this particular player ran behind a pretty terrible offensive line and put up gaudy numbers near the end and looked like they were back from the injury, and that is Cam Akers. I think Cam Akers is being slept on at running back 25. I think that's perfect. Offers great spike week potential at running back 25, getting volume on a Rams offense that has some ambiguity. We knew they were really bad last year, but Stafford should be back. James Conner goes off. That's very early for Conner relative to what we've been seeing. Oh man, I'm going to get a lot of players that I like in these drafts. I have a feeling. Okay, good. I'm just looking at who else could be available at these spots. Yeah, so I don't have a tight end yet. And probably not. Tyler Lockett goes off. That was a nice little pick there. I like that. Okay. Ayuk also goes off. That's a nice pick at wide receiver 35. Lockett at wide receiver 34. Both are excellent selections. The 101's kind of redeeming himself with herself with the last couple picks. Freiermuth went off at tight end 10, and Njoku went off at tight end 9. So we'll see who this next person selects. Yeah. I am on the clock. And who just went off? Marquise Hollywood Brown. Okay. Well, looking at how these teams are turning out, yeah, let's see if there's any others that are really standing out to me. Oh, I think there's going to be some great values later. Oh, this makes me very happy. Okay, so I think the play here is to get another running back that offers potential upside. Running back 27 is a little early once again for James Cook, but the role that he can have in conjunction with Damian Harris, I'm in on that in round 9. Running back 27, I think James Cook is a potential league winner, especially with the lack of usage for Dawson Knox. Damian Harris doesn't catch many passes. Josh Allen is probably not going to be running as much, is my guess. And so the dump offs there for James Cook. There's also been a lot of chatter from the GM and the coach about getting James Cook involved more. And James Cook, like, you have to give Cook credit. He played well his rookie year in his limited snaps. During his rookie year, James Cook, among running backs, was running back number 2 in true yards per carry, running back 3 in yards per touch. He was first in running back breakaway run rate at a 12.1% clip. He was, okay, James Cook only had 91 rush attempts, and he was 17th among all running backs in breakaway runs. So this is a player who he gets carries, and when he gets carries behind or in front of, in fronts that aren't very heavy. His light front carry rate was 5th highest. So he's getting a lot of room to run. He's dynamic. He's a good breakaway type of running back. And so I like the spike week potential for James Cook. We saw a little sprinkling of it in his first year, but a really shifty back, good at breaking away. And we saw a couple games near the end of the season, like in week 13 against New England, he finishes running back 13. And week 16, he finishes running back 11. Okay, so there's some James Cook love here. He was one of the players back in January. I was featured on the Fantasy Pros podcast, and they asked me, who is, a running back you want to feature? And I said, I want to talk about James Cook because of his, peripheral stats, his efficiency metrics. And the James Cook as my running back 3, like, he doesn't need to hit every week at all. But I've got DeAndre Swift, I've got Cam Akers, and I've got 4 wide receivers who all have spike week potential as well. Hurts and Russell Wilson are there, and I think those are going to be pretty solid. So taking a little bit of a risk on James Cook, but also in a good offense, like games that could turn into shootouts. You lose some important pieces on defense, and the Buffalo Bills could get into even more shootouts, leaning on the likes of James Cook a little bit more. Even if he doesn't get all of the touchdowns, he can still be fantasy relevant in PPR leagues. Okay, so we see going off the board, Anthony Richardson and Brock Purdy. Dalton Schultz goes off the board at tight end 11. Javonte Williams at running back 28. Treylon Burks at wide receiver 37. Gabe Davis at wide receiver 38. George Pickens at 39. Rashad White and Brian Robinson running back 30. I don't like Brian Robinson either in best ball. I don't mind Brian Robinson as a possible flex play in redraft leagues. Like if we know that Washington doesn't, address the running back position in a significant way in the draft, I'm fine with Brian Robinson as running back 30 in redraft leagues. But in best ball leagues, like there were 10 different instances last year where Brian Robinson was receiving 15 or more touches. He had like one top 10 week. Okay, Brian Robinson is not a spike week type of guy. But I do like a lot of these wide receivers that have come off the board. The Treylon Burks, the Quentin Johnstons, the Kadarius Tonys, the Michael Thomases. In fact, this is pretty early for Michael Thomas. Thomas is usually being drafted around wide receiver 48 to wide receiver 50. So he's drafted probably a round and a half earlier than usual here on the FFPC draft tonight. Okay. So there we go. All right. We are back to the draft room. Okay. There are some quarterback 3s that I'm considering at this spot. Okay. And there's also some other like wide receivers and there's some wide receivers that I'm considering and a running back that I'm looking at these spots. Cole Kmet goes off the board. Cortland Sutton goes off the board. Unfortunately, not going to be able to stack with Sutton. We'll see how that turns out. It's just an interesting build when your wide receiver 1 is Treylon Burks. That feels a little gross. Sorry. I mean, chime in the comments if you think I'm wrong. Like, please, like I'd love to push back on some of these things or have some pushback. The reality is when you're drafting like this to go 0 wide receiver through 8 rounds in an FFPC full PPR draft, that seems less than ideal. And maybe I'm the fool for not taking the tight ends. But I mean, there's 1, 2, 3 other teams who haven't selected a tight end yet either through 9 rounds. And it was 4 others before the Cole Kmet selection by the 109 drafter. So I don't think that that's really much of an issue. I'm in on taking some later round tight ends. Yeah, I don't see them as fantasy relevant unless, they're one of those elite scores or they can access elite ceilings. Yeah, let's take a step back for a moment. Talking about tight end rates, there were, 31 tight ends last year, 32 tight ends to have at least score greater than a 0% top 5 rate. I mean, that's 1 per team. But 64% of Travis Kelce's weeks were top 5 weeks. The next closest was Mark Andrews at 27.1, and then Kittle was at 27%. So literally add Andrews and Kittle together, and you don't get Travis Kelce's level. And that's going to be the biggest difference maker, which is why in 1 quarterback FFPC leagues, like it wouldn't surprise me to take Kelce 101. It wouldn't surprise me to take Kelce, 103, 102, because of the significant difference that Kelce offers over that singular spot. Okay. So coming off the board, Jordan Addison, Tyler Algier, Alvin Kamara coming off the board at running back 32. Kamara slowed down a little bit last year in terms of efficiency. He also was carrying a lot, which was not characteristic of Alvin Kamara. Yeah. So we'll see how this New Orleans offense turns out. I am in on Chris Olave but per the fact that I drafted him wide receiver 16, but we have to have concerns about the rest of the pieces. Jahan Dotson was a nice pick. I was thinking about taking him at this spot, but instead, okay, I'm going to go with wide receiver Rashad Bateman. I like Rashad Bateman coming out of college, out of Minnesota, was a first-round draft capital wide receiver. To get him at wide receiver 46, yeah, he's been dealing with injuries, but the coaches have been talking him up. He should be ready to roll for OTAs. There's been a little bit of a spat, and my only concern is if it's Tyler Huntley throwing the ball, right? But if we get that clarity, maybe it is, Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews who are peppered with targets. So we'll see. But as Rashad Bateman is my wide receiver 5, I like that possibility. Now there's a tight end that's coming back around that I would like to get my hands on because of the efficiency metrics that this particular tight end showed and is no longer sharing the tight end room. It'd be really disappointing if the 102 went with 3 tight ends, but we'll see how that shakes out, especially given that the 102 does not have a second quarterback. Yeah. Ooh. We'll see. Oh, actually, I'll go with. We'll see how the 102 drafts. Oh, really? That's an interesting selection. Brandon Cooks at wide receiver 47. Wow, that's a value. Wide receiver 47 in the Dallas offense. Yeah, getting some CD Lamb correlation there. I like the metrics of Chig Okonkwo. Okay, Okonkwo, tight end for Tennessee, 4th-round pick. He'll be 24 during the season, but during his rookie year, yeah, he was tight end 31 fantasy points per game, but he was second among tight ends in target rate at 33%. His ADOT was 11th among tight ends. His target quality rating was 6th. His 14th in yards after catch. He was number 1. Chig Okonkwo was number 1 in yards per route run and number 1 in yards per reception. Additionally, a great target premium, Chig Okonkwo. Whoa, Irv Smith goes off tight end 14. Wow, okay. The 105 want to make sure that they got the stack with Irv Smith, but okay. Yeah, Chig Okonkwo, fantasy points per route was number 1 among tight ends, and fantasy points per target was number 5. So getting him at tight end 13, he commands targets, which you want touchdowns for your tight ends. That's normally where these tight ends are going to be making their money. But if Chig Okonkwo is commanding targets like he was last year, like we saw at the end of the season, if Chig Okonkwo 5, 5, 6, 5, 2, 4, 4 targets, and we see 10, 18, 10, 2, 5, 13 fantasy points, you have to like that. And now Austin Hooper's not there. Austin Hooper has gone to the Vegas Raiders. So I like Chig Okonkwo. He had 1, 2, 3 top 8 finishes, and another week where he went 3 for 38 and a touchdown in week 4. So there's some upside potential to Chig Okonkwo filling in that tight end role. Now, am I going to be comfortable with Chig Okonkwo as my only tight end? Absolutely not. I'll probably come back around and take another tight end, and there's one that's just staring at me in the face. We'll see if he comes back around, but if not, there's some other tight ends later that can really work out well in my favor, I believe. Okay. So after Chig Okonkwo, Zach Charbonnet goes off. I love that pick. That's a really, really nice running back pick, Zach Charbonnet. Irv Smith, Desmond Ridder, Dawson Knox, Jimmy Garoppolo go off. Rashawn Johnson at running back 37. That feels like a reach to me. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But Rashawn Johnson, running back 37, at this point in the offseason, I feel like that's really early. Like really, really early. I mean, yikes. I like Rashawn Johnson as much as the next guy, actually, probably more than the next guy. But at running back 37, like normally you just wait for those types of guys. Like I'm getting Rashawn Johnson. I don't know. I've got a bunch of him on the Drafters fantasy app at like ADP, I think in the 160s and 170s. But now we're in round 11 in SuperFlex. Yeah, yikes. Wow, that's pricey on Rashawn Johnson. It's just not in line with the market right now. So Elijah Moore goes off run at wide receiver 48. Khalil Herbert. Mike Gesicki goes off. Samaje Perine. Damian Harris. I like the Perine Harris little run there. I'm drafting a lot of Damian Harris. I'm drafting a lot of Samaje Perine in my underdog and drafters drafts. So those are good. Post running back 3, it's just gravy. It's just upside at that point. So you're banking on Damian Harris going like 8 for 50 and a touchdown, and then you're talking maybe he gets 1 reception for 10 yards. So that's what, like 13 fantasy points? That's fine. That's not a spike week, but it's going to get you a flex play at least. So you have to be happy with Damian Harris at running back 40. Those are great values, even if we are seeing other running backs come off a little early. Okay, there is a starting quarterback that I almost took coming up. So we'll see if he comes off the board or if he doesn't, and I'll take him. Yeah, to get this late, like there are 32 starting quarterbacks, and right now we've seen 30 go off the board. Brock Purdy and Trey Lance being two of them at quarterback 26 and 28. So we don't know. we don't know at this point which one it's going to be. There's been a lot of hoobaloo on Twitter today about Trey Lance and whether Trey Lance is good or whether Trey Lance has had enough time to be good or if he's just unlucky, and at this point we just don't have enough data. Usually because Trey Lance didn't throw a lot of passes in college. He didn't throw a lot of passes in the NFL, and he's suffered injuries each of the last couple of years that are unrelated. So I don't think that we can make a good gauge of whether we have enough information in Trey Lance. And maybe this is a cop-out. I don't think it is. It's stating the facts. I don't think we have enough information on Trey Lance to be able to say, Trey Lance sucks, but we do have enough information to be worried about his immediate future. With the 49ers coming out and saying, if Brock Purdy's ready to go, it's his role. He's earned it based on his performance at the end of the year. Like, that's not what is being said about Trey Lance. So that, if you're saying, well, that's the data, Bradley, well, then I'll give it to you. But we don't have enough statistical data to say that Trey Lance sucks at football or is bad at football. So nevertheless, Tannehill goes off. That was going to be my target here. But instead, I'm going to go with a stack and a tight end. At tight end 19, Greg Dulcich. Okay. And that's going to stack with my Russell Wilson. But Dulcich was a third-round pick last year out of UCLA. And just to speak about some of the metrics, sixth in slot snaps among tight ends, third in average depth of target, third in deep targets, seventh in unrealized air yards, ninth in yards per reception, 23rd in yards per route run. So he's going to have to be a little bit more efficient, but he kept getting cushion in the slot. And some nice premium production. We saw some decent enough fantasy points. He was tight end 17 in fantasy points per game last year. So getting a little bit of a premium bump could work out. And to pair with Chig Okonkwo and Greg Dulcich, we're talking about some decent enough fantasy points from those two. I prefer pairing, and then maybe I'll take one more tight end later on in the draft. Okay. So it looks like I am up next. Oh, there are some really nice plays up. Who just went off? It disappeared. Sam Howell went off. Okay. And I want to get myself some Zay Flowers. So Zay Flowers is a wide receiver out of Boston College, rookie, projected first-round pick. And that's why I'm drafting him at this spot. Anytime you're drafting a projected first-round wide receiver outside of the top 36 of wide receivers, that's going to work out really well. Because if he busts, we're talking Alan Lazard, Sky Moore, KJ Osborne being drafted around this level. All it is upside at this point. And you're getting projected draft capital on a player who is getting a lot of rave reviews for his route running. His PFF receiving grade wasn't phenomenal. It was only 75 or 77, but the draft capital is going to give him a long leash. He's going to be involved in the offense pretty quickly. We would expect near the end of the season. And, let's take a step back. Philosophy of drafting. My team for wide receivers. AJ Brown, first round wide receiver. Devonta Smith, first round wide receiver. Like, this is real life NFL draft capital. Chris Olave, first round draft capital. Jameson Williams, first round draft capital. Rashad Bateman, first round draft capital. Zay Flowers, first round draft capital, right? These are players who the NFL all thought were good and are good and will continue to be good. Zay Flowers projected first round draft capital. So when I'm not trying to spot outliers. I'm trying to find players that teams say, you know what, this guy is going to be pretty good. Like DeAndre Swift was the second or third pick in the second round. Yeah, he's good. Cam Akers, second round pick. James Cook, second round pick. Okay. Like, when I am drafting, that comes into mind for what kind of role are these players projected to get. So a little bit about my philosophy of drafting, and maybe that leans me away from, like, the Gabe Davises of the world, or, I don't know, the Jacoby Myers of the world, or the KJ Osbornes of the world. But the reality is when you are drafting players with first round NFL, real life NFL draft capital, or you're avoiding players who did not receive that draft capital, those are most likely good bets. Okay. It's the exception, not the rule, that players who are drafted significantly later, are the ones that hit. Okay. So AJ Hernandez asks, does Brandon Cook's first round draft capital count, or is that expired? That's a good question. So yes, expired first round draft capital. I mean, that applies to like the N'Keal Harrys of the world, the Jalen Reagors of the world, the Henry Ruggs of the world, right? Brandon Cooks, at that point, we have to look at what type of efficiency metrics had those players put up over the last couple of years, because when they were drafted initially, they were good. And as we know, Brandon Cooks had been good for a long time. And this is also the Michael Thomas corollary, the Antonio Brown corollary. If these players are good for a long time, that kind of resets the narrative. So Brandon Cooks, yeah, his counting numbers weren't great last year, but his efficiency metrics were decent enough. Like, he was wide receiver 33 or 32 in PFF receiving grade. He was wide receiver 32 or 33 in yards per route run last year. Out of, I think there were like 70 qualified wide receiver. So he was fine. Like, he wasn't bad. He wasn't Michael Gallup bad. He wasn't Marvin Jones Jr. bad. He wasn't Josh Palmer bad. It's another reason why I stay away from Josh Palmer, is because he could be easily replaced. We saw last year Josh Palmer get tons and tons of targets and not do much with them. So Brandon Cooks, his first round draft capital isn't the reason you're drafting him, because as AJ thinks about, it might be expired, but really it's, does this player have a lot of the pedigree to answer the question, is he good? And the efficiency metrics give confirmation that, well, he's still good enough. So Brandon Cooks right now went off at wide receiver 47. I think that's a fine value for a player of that nature, who's 30 years old, who didn't put up great numbers last year and put up okay efficiency metrics. But, at wide receiver 47 going to a better offense, I don't hate it. And especially with this being best ball, tying yourself to a decent offense is not a bad choice. Okay. So there we go. That's my little philosophy on how I'm attacking these. And obviously the tight ends, almost no tight ends are drafted that early. Okay. So getting Chigakonko and Greg Dulcich round 3, round 4, etc. is not terrible. But I'm also looking here at who else can be available. Oh, Juwan Johnson went off. That's so sad. Sorry, guys. I got distracted. Now, that's the tough thing about these live drafts is, you want to be always drafting, but always talking too, because it's just me right now. It's just me. Let's look at, oh, yes. Okay. Speaking of first round draft capital, I don't understand why Noah Fant is going off here at tight end 25. Like, Noah Fant was decent enough last year. And he also has some spike weeks. Like, talk about a first round draft capital wide receiver or tight end. I'm sorry. This guy does have, he was a bad year last year and still finishes tight end 23 in fantasy points per game on a new team. His player profiler comp is George Kittle. And looking at some of his efficiency metrics, he was 15th in receptions. He was 6th in target accuracy, 12th in target separation, 22nd in yards per route run, which wasn't great, but 18th in receiving yards. So a nearly 20% target rate is not terrible. So to get a few spike weeks, I like that for Noah Fant. Okay, let's see who else is available. I'm back on the clock. Man, oh man. Oh, let's revisit. I haven't gone for a quarterback in a while. Let's see if there are any that are of interest to me. Oh, this is slim pickings right here. Maybe I should have gone with Will Levis there. I thought about it, but nevertheless. Okay. All right, we're going to go with Gardner Minshew at quarterback 34. So he's outside the top 32 of quarterbacks. That's fine. Signed to a $3.5 million deal. And I don't expect him to be the starter. But if the Colts either trade away their pick or they decide, you know what, Gardner is the one who's going to get us started this year, maybe there's a Gardner Minshew spike week here or there that could line up pretty nicely. I'm always a Minshew mania type of guy, and that's a decent value at quarterback 34. I mean, who else is on the roster for the Colts? It's very possible that the Colts, continue to trade back and just allow Gardner to be the starter. It's possible that they're the number one landing spot right now in the draft books. Last time I looked for Lamar Jackson. So maybe they do trade for Lamar Jackson. Gardner Minshew is the backup. But if the argument is, well, Lamar Jackson is injured and he doesn't deserve this contract, well, then Gardner Minshew will get some starts. There you go. So talking myself into Gardner Minshew, DJ Chark goes off at wide receiver 62. Let's take a moment to talk about DJ Chark because I like DJ Chark in a vacuum. But each of the last two seasons, DJ Chark has missed significant time due to ankle injuries. And then we just find out that DJ Chark is undergoing ankle surgery. That is a major red flag for me. And I'm waiting. I'm waiting on DJ Chark. Yeah, I was drafting him a lot earlier in the offseason, but now I'm going to wait. I'm going to let my percentages simmer a little bit while DJ Chark, we get news. He's an avoid for me until we hear that he is ready to roll. All right, looking later on, we got Tyjae Spears, running back 52, Wan'Dale Robinson. Man, this drafter went Kyler Murray, Mac Jones, Ryan Tannehill. But then at wide receiver, we got some undersized wide receivers with Jordan Addison, Rondell Moore, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Ooh, hoping for the PPR bumps here. Nevertheless. Okay, let's look at all and see who is still available. There are a couple players that I've got some eyebrow raises for, and maybe we can go with one more tight end because there's one that I think is undervalued going. Oh, there's also a wide receiver that I'd like to get my hands on. Okay. Yeah, and as I'm scrolling through the rest of these players in the player pool, not many of that. Like, I don't see first round draft capital popping off of almost for any of these guys. So yeah, I think we're pretty close to done with that row or type of drafting at this point. And that's another reason why Baker Mayfield, right, is getting another shot, is because he was not just a first round pick, but the number one overall pick a few years ago. Okay, so we just saw Donovan Peoples-Jones go off the board. But before that, we saw Chuba Hubbard go at running back 54 and Israel Abanikanda. That's how you pronounce it. It's not a Abanikandi. It's not Abanikanda. It's Israel Abanikanda. And I figured it out by listening to the pro day announcers. So it's like candy at the end. So Abanikanda. And he goes by Izzy from what the University of Pittsburgh reports are saying. So Izzy Abanikanda. That's going to be fun to say. He had a great pro day, by the way. Ran a 4.440, a strong big 5'10", 216, I think was the measurables for the running back out of Pittsburgh. He was one of the players that I highlighted in my Fantasy Pros podcast a couple months ago when they asked, well, like what's one player you wanted to highlight? And I said Israel Abanikanda. And unfortunately, I didn't know that his last name was pronounced Abanikanda, but here we go. Nevertheless, Izzy is off the board. I like that pick at running back 53, Chuba Hubbard at running back 54, DPJ at 55, Dubs at wide receiver 65, Alec Pierce at 66, Palmer at 67. I think Palmer is in jeopardy of losing his position in wide receiver 3. The Chargers are poised to be taking a wide receiver here in this draft. So I think that Palmer is one that you need to be selling in dynasty, in redraft, in whatever, however you're drafting right now. Josh Palmer is a sell for me. Sell what you can get. Argue that Josh Palmer gets all those targets. Argue that he is third-round draft capital. Sell it to your league mates. Yes, rid yourself of Josh Palmer. Because right now the public even thinks that he's getting replaced. Wide receiver 67. So there we go. Oh, please, 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 please. There is a possible projected first-round wide receiver that's just hanging out later on. A rookie. I hope I'm not sniped here, but the person ahead of me just auto-drafted, so we'll see if that is the case. Doo-doo. All right. We're going to see Raheem. So we saw Nico Collins go off the board. That's a player that I think is undervalued. A wide receiver 69. Nice. Nico Collins was I think he was wide receiver 38 in PFF receiving grade and wide receiver 32 or 33 in PFF and in yards per route run last year. So he is an undervalued receiver with a quarterback upgrade. I like that pick. Hunter Renfrow goes off the board. Beautiful. It allows me to take Josh Downs, wide receiver out of North Carolina. He's projected to get first-round draft capital. I'm drafting Josh Downs everywhere. He's a great route runner. He makes all of his teammates better. And I've seen him drafted late first round, sometimes early second round. But heck, I saw him, I think, at 25th overall. So I like Josh Downs there at wide receiver 71. That gives some nice upside. Okay. Taysom Hill goes off at tight end 27. That's a nice value. Ferguson at 28. And I'm back up. And let's see. Who are some other good values right now? We could go with quarterback again. And Curtis Samuel goes off the board. That's a nice little pick. Let's go with Jacoby Brissett. I think Brissett will push Sam Howell. And we'll see if Sam Howell holds up. I hope he does. I'm rooting for the kid. I thought that he should have not been drafted in the 5th round. Something was wrong. I don't understand why teams were not going with Sam Howell earlier than they did last year, but Jacoby Brissett at quarterback 36, that's fine. So I've got my 2 starters. I've got my 2 backups who are potential starters, like good enough starters that will probably get some play. And then I'm going to I'm good at quarterback. Maybe I'll go one more tight end. We'll see how this goes. And then at running back, I'm going to need to hammer some running backs here because I only have 3 at this point. But there are some running backs that I am in on, some rookie running backs, but also some veterans that are undervalued. We'll see who is going to be available to me in round 18, 19, and 20. But I think I'm just going to have to roll with those tight ends, Chigakonkwo, Dulcich, Noah Fant. We'll roll with those wide receivers, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, and Josh Downs. I think I'm good at wide receiver, and I think I'll just go with running back the rest of the way. Those guys will probably end up in my flex a lot, and given that I punted the first 5 rounds with wide receivers and quarterbacks, Swift, Akers, James Cook are my running backs right now. So I'm going to need a little bit more reinforcement on that front. But nevertheless, we'll attack it here. If you like the content and you found this helpful, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. Okay, I'm almost at 1,000 subs. It's been really a big deal for me in this growing this community over the past year. Lots of work to get where we're at and be able to answer all your questions and set all of these things up. All of this is possible because all y'all are great in this community and it continues to grow. So smash that red subscribe button if you found tonight's content helpful. I'm really grateful for all y'all and look forward to continuing to growing with y'all in the Best Bell Fantasy Football YouTube channel. And we're going to be getting the website cranking up here very shortly. Once we get the YouTube all set, then I'm going to focus on the website and the upside guide that I want to get to Amazon here in the next month or so. So be keeping your eyes out for those things. Hopefully we'll get them available. If not, it's not a rush. I don't have a hard deadline to get it by the draft, but I do, since, everyone's going to be talking about it, I do want to get it out by the draft. I think it'll be really helpful for identifying some players that you should be targeting and avoiding, and maybe some philosophy behind the draft capital, like how I talked about earlier tonight about why I'm targeting certain players, in a vacuum, but also specifically with regard to the upside that they can offer, taking a macro view of these players and also a macro view of the structures as well. As you saw, 2 of my first 3 picks in the SuperFlex draft were quarterbacks, but then I didn't hammer that again for a while because really there are limitations to the other quarterbacks, in accessing tremendous upside. So looking at last year, top 5 quarterback rate, Jalen Hurts was number 1 at 53% of the time. The next closest was Josh Allen at 39% of the time. That was in 2022. And then Russell Wilson was quarterback 15 in that rate. And that was a bad year for Russell Wilson. Was quarterback 15. Okay. So at 10% of the time. So Hurts was 5 times more likely to be hitting. Okay. So we'll see how that turns out. But really that's the philosophy is that I wasn't willing to take, a Kirk Cousins at that spot. Like A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams were still on the board at that point. So I like how the draft just fell to me, and I felt like I wasn't reaching too much. I liked some of the value that I was getting at these places. There were a couple places where I said, maybe I would have liked, Zach Charbonnet, but I don't hate getting Chigakonkwo because I did feel like there was a teardrop from Okonkwo to, Dawson Knox or Mike Gesicki. So I expect Okonkwo to be a really important part of this Tennessee passing offense. Then Greg Dulcich as well played well enough last year. Maybe Akua Bunum is a last round tight end that you can consider. Noah Fant as well in a new team in that Russell Wilson trade. Fant, I think, will do better than tight end 25 or 23 like he did last year. So getting him at tight end 25 feels like the floor for Noah Fant. And then to get Josh Downs, like how can you pass up Josh Downs at wide receiver 71? That is extreme value. All right. So let's see who is still available. I need some running back help or at least depth here. We are going to go Dwayne McBride. That's my no matter what. For those who are unfamiliar, I try to draft as much Dwayne McBride as possible. Dwayne McBride, no matter what. Okay. So he's my guy for this year. Between the tackles, grinder, his only flaw, because he was one of the best PFF rush grade, best yards after contact per attempt. I love me some Dwayne McBride. And let's see. Ooh, there's another juicy handcuff that's hanging out right here. Am I on the clock? Now I'm on the clock. No. Pierre Strong just got sniped. That was a nice pick. Okay. Yeah, okay. That Pierre Strong was going to be my guy. But okay, looks like we're going to go with let's go with Deuce Vaughn. Okay, so Deuce Vaughn is a running back out of Kansas State. He's 21 years old. Literally, Deuce Vaughn's only flaw is that he's 5'5". Okay, because in 2020, rushed 123 times for 650 yards and 9 touchdowns. Had 25 receptions for 400 receiving yards. 2021, 235 rush attempts, 1,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, 49 receptions. In 2022, 293 rush attempts, 1,558 rushing yards, 12 touchdowns, 42 receptions, 378 receiving yards. And this player, his best comp is Philip Lindsay, but look, you have to like what he was producing in college. The only question is his size. So college target share 17%, and I think that's better than what Philip Lindsay was at. Maybe I'm wrong, but in the right offense, Deuce Vaughn could be a nice little PPR back. Yeah, even better, significantly better. College target share was only 11.5% for Philip Lindsay. Deuce Vaughn was 16.7% college target share. So this was a guy who made a lot of people miss. As I said, literally his only flaw was that he's 5'5". But maybe he's Deion Lewis, that's possible. Maybe he is, I don't know, Lance Dunbar, like those could be some comps for Deuce Vaughn. And getting him at running back 64, yeah, this is PPR, right? So he could carve out a role in the second half of the season. I don't hate those. So I've got 5 running backs right now. Maybe I go with a 6th one. That's probably wise given the structure that I have right now. Because right now I have a 4, 5, 7, 3 build. Yeah, I think that's how we're going to go with. See if there are any major values left. I'm just going to scroll through and see if anyone's just hanging out here that could be. Oh, man. I see one wide receiver, but I don't know if he's going to get the draft capital. I'm not going to select Puka Nacua, but he should be on your radar. Okay. There's another running back that I'm hoping to take here. Yeah, I think I'll go with one more running back given the structure that I have. And that's one of the things is as you're going through, you're going to have to take into account the structures as you get near the end of these drafts. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, I think we're just going to go with a running back given the structure. mean, Zach Evans is out there. Zamir White is out there. Oh, Puka Nacua does go off the board here. How about that as a last round auto pick? Okay, Rashee Rice also goes off as an auto pick. Kenny McIntosh, Evan Hull, Isaiah Spillers out there. Boston Scott, Eric Gray. Really depends on who gets what draft capital at this point. Devontae Price. Tyler Beatty might be one to consider, especially with my Denver stack. Tyler Beatty played well. Tyler Beatty's player profiler comp, if I recall correctly, is Gio Bernard. That could be really interesting. Him ending up on. Oh yeah. I think that's. Let's go with Tyler Beatty if I'm not sniped here. Okay, so we're gonna go with Tyler Beatty. He was a rookie last year, selected by the Baltimore Ravens in the 6th round. But as I said, player profiler comp is Gio Bernard and had an 18% college target share at Missouri, 5'8", 197. So Tyler Beatty last year, game log, 4 routes, 1 target, 1 reception for 24 yards, 1 touchdown. He finishes running back 26 in week 18 against the Chargers. So nothing crazy, but maybe he gets, and he was running back 69. So that's nice. Maybe Tyler Beatty comes through big time for me. Nevertheless, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate all of you jumping in, drafting with me, maybe drafting against me. Who knows? But maybe you're saying, taken away from this, oh, these are some guys I should consider, or maybe I didn't think about this player in that way before. However it is, I hope that tonight was helpful for you and be able to, gain some better understanding of these players, a better strategy. So just to recap, I went with Jalen Hurts in the first round. This was a SuperFlex 20-round draft. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Russell Wilson, Devonta Smith. So I got 3 Eagles to start out. And then I got Olave in round 5, Swift in round 6, Jameson Williams in round 7. So I got the Swift, Jameson Williams correlation happening. Cam Akers in round 8, James Cook in round 9, Bateman in round 10 at wide receiver 46. I think that's a nice little value. Chigakonkwo, Greg Dulcich, Noah Fant in rounds 11, 12, and 14. And tuckered in there is Zay Flowers at wide receiver 54. Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett in rounds 15 and 17 are my backup quarterbacks. Josh Downs, wide receiver 71 in round 16. And then I went running backs to end: Dwayne McBride, Deuce Vaughn, Tyler Beatty. So there we go. That's how it rounded up. And my build ended up being a 4-6-7-3 build. Okay, well, there you go. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. Make sure if you like the content, you found this helpful, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. It's right there on live stream. Once again, my name is Bradley. You can follow me on Twitter at FFStalder. I'll be doing these types of drafts, whether it's FFPC or drafters. I did an underdog one last week as well. So I'll be doing live drafts throughout the off season, best ball. And of course, as we get closer to it, I'll be doing some mock drafts for the NFL draft. I'll do probably one of those later on this week. And then, we'll do some more content for you as well. So I appreciate all of you tuning in. This has been a lot of fun. Again, hit that red subscribe button. We're almost to 1,000. That's going to be awesome. We're going to do some celebration. Check out my profile. I've got a giveaway going on Twitter at FFStalder. You can see it's pinned at the top of my profile. Retweet that, subscribe to the channel, and you'll be entered for the giveaway. There's some great things happening. There's podcast partnerships that are going to be worked on here in the next little bit. I'm excited about some of the partnerships and affiliates that are going to be coming up for the Best Ball Fantasy podcast and live stream very shortly. I'm also working on getting new overlays. As you can tell, the camera is new. The microphone is new from last season. So I've done some major upgrades for y'all, and I'm excited to rock out year 2 here. We will be finishing year 1 officially on April 19th. And then start of year 2 of Best Bell Fantasy Football will be April 20th. 420. It was incidental. It's not meant to mean anything. Like some people are like, oh, 420, like, haha. No, like that's not something that I do. But nevertheless, April 20th is the start of year 2 of Best Bell Fantasy. I appreciate all of you, all the support you've shown. There's going to be some great content that's pumped out here on the channel coming up over the next few months, weeks, and even days. So make sure you're subscribed here. I'm going to be getting the website cranking up too. There's going to be some articles, and then the in-season stuff is going to be so awesome. I'll have waiver wire videos, and I'll have a couple waiver wire write-ups as well, in addition to some other great content. So make sure you are checking out all of the things. It's just me flying solo. So if you got problems with it, I'll take it up with my team, which is just me. So if there's editing issues, I'll take that to the editing team. But once again, thanks so much, guys. This has been a lot of fun. And until next time, good luck in the best ball streets.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bell, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bell, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still.